Evening to our beloved guests and residents at home who are tuned in our different social media platforms and radio stations this evening. Most of the areas are dark this evening. It's also dark where I am. I am connecting from the car because I am attending a meeting. So after this session, I'm having another meeting somewhere in town, and it's very dark. But good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my weekly show known as Talk with the Speaker of Council. My name is Councillor Nongceba Mulwele, and I am the Speaker of Council in the city of Johannesburg. Please do follow me on my own social media page, which is Nongceba Mulwele on Facebook, and at speaker_COJ on Twitter, as we are live on these platforms. We are busy with our Youth Month series as we are now in Youth Month. As you all know, that June is Youth Month, and our discussion for today looks at youth participation in democracy. The aim is to establish what it will take to boost the involvement of young people in government or local government processes. Before we get into it, ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity to thank our host and partner, Dr. Fundile Nyati, for providing us with this platform. We wish him a speedy recovery as he won't be able to join us this evening. Let me also thank our radio partners, Jozi FM, they are here, Eldos FM, Alex FM, Chai FM, and Pulse FM, who continue to support us in our endeavor to educate our communities on various topics relating to council business. And thank you to everyone who has joined in for today's engagement. We know it is cold, but thank you very much for making time. Fellow Joburgers, the Electoral Commission of South Africa has revealed that about 9 million people eligible to vote were not registered to vote. Of these, about 6 million were young people. Alarmingly, less than 20% of eligible first-time voters, those who turned 18 since the last national elections, registered to vote. The election was untimely held with the lowest voter turnout, since 1994. Looking at the trends over the last few years, there's been a systematic decrease in youth participation in elections, but also youth participation in local government processes. We recently held our community-based planning sessions and integrated development planning processes. And one of the challenges that we found was that young people were simply not participating in these processes. As we prepare for our next cycle of planning as local government, we must address the issue of youth apathy. We must plan adequately and efficiently. As part of correcting the wrongs of the past, we must continue to pursue and endeavor to amplify the voices of young people in government planning. And this begins with engaging young people themselves on what it will take for you to engage more with us as government. As you normally say as young people, nothing for you without you. So today's sessions and others to follow are a fact-finding mission to help hear and better understand the views of young people. Ladies and gentlemen, I am excited to host a panel of young people who come from various sectors of society, some in politics, others in academia, and others are staunch activists, and who will assist us to unpack this evening's topic. So this evening, we are joined by Dr. T.K. Powe, who is a senior lecturer at the Wits School of Governance, and will share with us the research or academic findings as it relates to the involvement of young people in democratic process, especially those of local government. I'm not sure if it is Dr. Powe who is represented, but a person who is representing Dr. Powe will then indicate and also introduce herself. We are also joined by Mxolisi Ngwane, who is a political leader and a convener of the Greater Johannesburg ANC Youth League Regional Task Team. Mr. Ngwane is going to give us his perspective as a man who is on the ground and carries the voice of young people on what is causing young people to be apathetic. We are joined by Mr. Mohamed Desai, the Executive Director of the Human Rights NGO, hashtag Africa for Palestine, and National Committee member of the Young Communist League South Africa. Mr. Desai will share with us what it will take for young people to actively and continuously participate in local government processes. We are also joined by Mr. Juliet Solomons, who is from the Community Engagement Unit at the University of Johannesburg, and will help us unpack how, as the city, can do things differently to engage young people. I am honored to host the MMC for Economic Development, Councillor Lawrence Khoza, who is not so young anymore, but young at heart, Councillor MMC Khoza. But I thought we could not have a discussion and not include the work that he has been doing as it relates to youth, not only in your department, but in the city at large, especially around youth cooperatives. MMC, thank you very much for joining us today. I am delighted at your presence. Thank you very much. To all the panel, thank you very much for your presence, and you are most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, before I hand over to Mushe, who is my partner from Jozi FM, and who is also my co-host today, let me start with Dr. TK. Dr. TK is here. Yes, Dr. TK, please help us unpack and or analyze the state of youth apathy as it relates to their involvement in local government processes. Some young people are well informed about current affairs. They hold passionately expressed opinions about various political issues, from xenophobia to the government's failure to provide basic services. Why then do we see less young people being involved with democratic processes? So, without further ado, over to you, Dr. TK Bowe.
All right. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Oh, no, thank you. I guess it's good to be not the only person in the dark, because I was a bit worried I was the only person who was going to be in the dark.
No, don't worry. It's only Jozi FM who's not.
Oh, okay. Are you still there?
I think we've lost Madam Speaker, Dr. TK, but I think you can continue.
Okay, no, just maybe as a proviso, I'd given my presentation ahead of time. So for those that want to have it, I will. Yeah, it's been presented. I'll try to be quick in doing this, because I think I was given between 2 to 3 minutes. Look, my first answer, I think it's how do I put it? It's the simple answer for me is I put it as a narrative. I think there's two dominant narratives when it comes to institutions or government speaking to youth. There's what I term the almighty status quo of political youth, which is, let me just run it quickly. We have June 1976, be loyal. You have a fight on your hands, be the change you want to be. Then there's always some new topic every year they'll put in. For instance, it could be xenophobia, it could be something which is topical. And then what tends to happen is they invite youth political formations and some civil society, and then there's Youth Day speeches, and it goes on and on and on. Yet, people, put it like this, young people they kind of know how this goes. So what's happened is that there's a new narrative, which it's not new, but it's what I term my second one. It's called the Mover Shaker Youth and Government Partner, which is to say you sometimes get institutions like Umsombomvu Youth Fund who come to speak about, listen, we can do X and Y for you, just put through your business plan. Then there's discussions about the national youth policy for 2020, 2030. Or in the case of the city of Joburg, there's what's called the youth advisory centers where you can just walk in, and the narrative goes on and on and on. Now, these are the two dominant narratives, which I think young people have, in large, have really got a bit tired about, because and I put it to you that they really are not touching on what young people are really concerned about at the moment. If you look at just the statistics of unemployment in the city of Joburg, it says that youth unemployment is estimated to stand about 46.6 in the city. Now, if you're not speaking to that reality, then why would I take my time to go listen to you? And on top of that, there's also and this is maybe where local government is a bit at the mercy of macroeconomics, which is to say, the formal sector is actually slowing down in the amount of jobs that young people can be absorbed into. And then it raises a question: when you're speaking to young people, it's not really good enough for you to simply say, we as local government are speaking to you about issues of unemployment, because we all know how it's going to go. Youth Fund, what government can do to you, what can do for you. But what young people are looking for is, when I come and listen to you, are you actually bringing the private sector on board? And private sector is not just your JSE listed companies, but it's SMMEs and the like. Because what they're looking for is an interface between what they're experiencing as problems, which is clearly unemployment. Some of them want to get into higher education, not necessarily university, but TVET. And some really do want to say, listen, I really do want to start my own cooperative. Might not be a classical business in that sense. And others are saying, listen, I didn't go to varsity and my matric really was not that strong. So I'm looking for you to bring an interface which is going to tell me what the technology is going to be speaking to. Now, I put it to you that these things I've put before you are things which are always missing in youth discussions. And young people, just quoting from the IOL, they say this generation of young people are probably the most technologically savvy, and also ones who are not very shy to opt out of things that they find not to be very important towards them. Hence, and I think the MMC or council sort of touched on it, hence they can afford to say, listen, you as government, you can go on speaking in those little rooms of yours. You can come to our communities and pretend you're speaking to us, but then all we know at the end of the day is that you're going to speak about your politics, not our situation, and they will simply then just ignore you. So I want to put maybe a challenge to the city of Joburg and maybe other local governments, is if they could just read a document from the World Bank titled Skills Development. It speaks about 5 things which you need to do when you really want to engage the youth. And here I'm speaking from 16 all the way to 35, because I think that's a really healthy mix of people you can really speak to. Now, I'm just looking at my time, and I'm thinking if there is a second round, I'll probably touch on them. There are things which I think a 21st century municipality who wants to speak to youth should be concerned with. I think they should move away from the traditional 2 narratives I've spoken about, which is, yes, you speak politics, but it's politics that concerns you, not necessarily young people. And secondly, don't bring institutions of government that say, listen, we're here to help young people, when they really don't have a good track record of doing it, because young people will quickly opt out of such things. And I'll just maybe pause it till then, and then maybe later on one will bring their suggestions to the floor.
All right. We thank you so much, Dr. Bowe. We'll just proceed with the discussion. I'm going to involve now the convener of the Greater Johannesburg ANC Youth League Task Team, Umxolisi Ngwane. Ngwane, maybe you can just also, from the point of view of Dr. Bowe, just give us share sentiments or plight of young people of the city of Johannesburg, because we heard the speaker that they are not also participating in the community-based planning and integrated planning programs. Why is that? Maybe you can share that with us.
No. Thanks to the speaker, and greetings to all the panelists and the listeners and the viewers of the program of today. Thanks again for this opportunity. But I think, in my view, we need to check the significance of the month of June in the history of this country, because June is not only about speaking about the youth unemployment issues, but remember the 1976 uprising of Soweto, or perhaps the detachment of young people at that particular time, had a discourse, and that discourse was realized. Hence today, issues of education is accessible to young people. But over and above, if you can check the month of June, it's also symbolized the Freedom Charter adoption, which the Freedom Charter adoption that was adopted in 1955. In actual fact, it gave birth to the constitution of this country, where the issues of the constitution are being stated in terms of issues of employment, issues of economic development, issues of education, and etc. They're entrenched in the Freedom Charter document. But just to come to the discussion, as I was just relating, and I concur with my panelist that if we can check the current state essay, it just released the first quarter of its research that was conducted recent months, that the unemployment rate, it has increased drastically. And its impact, it comes as a result of the global pandemic of COVID-19, and which young people are the affected structure of the society. But over and above, if we have to zoom directly to the city of Johannesburg, where 46.6% of young people are unemployed in the city of Johannesburg, which it is an issue that needs a proper attention in relation to the policies of the ANC in Johannesburg, and subsequently to explain the policies of the ANC in Johannesburg and what it seeks to achieve, so that the government and young people, how best they can participate in the processes of local government election, because it is informed by the policies. Now, young people have to participate in the local government process on the basis that the policies that are being implemented in the city are responsive to the issues of youth development amongst young people in the city of Johannesburg. So it is imperative that we then get to the point in terms of the policy that are in place in the city of Johannesburg. But over and above, we need to make sure that young people, for them to participate, they need to be activists, they need to be stakeholders that are participating in the society within our communities in the city of Johannesburg, precisely because we need NGOs to be formulated in our communities. We need entrepreneurs to be established in our communities. We need academics to be able to shape the discourse of the policy in the city of Johannesburg. So I think it's where we need to start as young people, precisely because what is happening in government, it should not be a by the way process, but it should be an extensive process that young people, from the inception of the policies, young people must participate so that they can be the champion of those policies in the city of Johannesburg. So I'm coming from that point of view to say the lack of participation of young people in the processes of the IDP community-based processes, it is because young people are not at the center of the policy formulation in these processes. Therefore, we need to then make sure that the consultation and the public stakeholders engagement amongst young people in the communities needs to be advertised, needs to be showcased, so that young people can be active participants in the policy formulation of the city of Johannesburg. I think that's where we need to start. But in my conclusion is that the issue of unemployment amongst young people in the city of Johannesburg, it is a result of lack of economic opportunities. Now, when we are referring to the lack of economic opportunities, we are saying that bottlenecks and the red tapes within the city of Johannesburg for young entrepreneurs to participate in the economy of the city, it becomes difficult. Now, you would have young people who are despondent in the space of business. You have young people who are despondent in the space of academic background. You have young people who are despondent in a space of job seekers. So those are the commanding factors that actually they contribute to young people losing faith in the processes of local government election and subsequent national election. So it is imperative that public communication engagement should always take place. Young people need to be taken into confidence around the policies that are in place in the city or even in the province in order for them to be participants and active contributors in terms of the policy that are going to be governing in the next 5 years. Because remember, the policy formulation of the city is going to run for 5 years. But over and above, the IDP run 12 months, so that in that process of the financial year, 12 months, young people need to contribute in terms of its policy position. So those will be the first bite that I will want to introduce, in adding to my colleague in relation to the lack of participation, is to say young people have to be active participants in the policy formulation from the onset of it. Thank you.
We thank Mr. Mxolisi Ngwane on his opening remarks as part of the discussion for this evening, as we are looking at the time as well. On our side, let me just quickly involve Mr. Desai. He is from an NGO, and he's the executive director of the Human Rights NGO. Mr. Desai, let me put you in with what will it take for young people to actively participate, and what should government be focusing on as we are discussing this important issue of youth participation in the democracy or in the local government?
Thanks so much, and thanks so much for having this session. I think that there are two things. The first is that I am getting old, and so therefore all I can do really in this small input is to share my own personal experiences, but rather than speaking authoritatively on behalf of young people. I think that part of the issue that we face is that voices of young people, particularly the formative voices, 16 to 25, for example, need to be provided more space, including by people like myself, who are more in the over 30 category. I think that there are two elements, and the one is the greater push, and this is the best that I think I can convey to younger people that are wanting to get more involved in both local government, but also more generally in political activism, in social justice activism, is to push ahead, and and that you need to carve out your space. Nothing is going to be handed out to you, and it's not anybody's obligation to make it easy for you necessarily. It would be a wonderful case if we had that. But don't be despondent because of that situation. The second is that I do think that the city of Johannesburg, in the various years that I, for example, in the last 10 years or the last decade, that I've been involved in social justice activism, one of the really wonderful elements in the way in which the city of Johannesburg has been governed, including the office of the speaker, is that there's always been an openness to engage with young people, not necessarily as young people, but as people. And I think that this is an incredible empowerment position, where when you enter the speaker's office or you enter a meeting with the mayor of our city, we are not necessarily reduced to a minor category, but we are spoken with and we are spoken to as equals around that table. And I think that on the one hand, whilst I'm commending the city of Johannesburg for engaging with people that may perhaps be young in age, I think that this is one message that our speaker perhaps can take to other facets and other spheres within government. This openness, firstly, and creating the necessary conditions for young people not to be intimidated to enter those spaces. But when we do enter those spaces, that letting go of any patronizing sort of position is welcomed and has been beneficial to many of us young people who entered that terrain.
Thank you so much, Mr. Desai, for those opening remarks and your contribution to this evening's discussion. I'll quickly just want to, before we leave, involve the MMC for Economic Development in the city of Johannesburg, Lawrence Khoza. MMC, thank you so much for joining us this evening as well. Just maybe as part of your opening remarks, share with us your plans as the economic development, and also expand on youth cooperatives that have been launched around the city for our listeners and to viewers to also understand what the city is doing for young people in the city. I'm not sure if we have the MMC there. I'm not seeing MMC. Let me see. Do we still have the MMC Khoza?
He might have been kicked out, Moshe. Perhaps we can speak to Ms. Juliet Solomons.
Okay, Ms. Juliet Solomons, let me just involve her.
Thank you.
All right, MMC, he's back.
Thank you.
Okay, MMC, I'm not sure if you heard my question. Do you want to proceed?
No, thank you very much. Yes, I'm ready. Sorry, man, and the network is bad this side. I was worried until the speaker spoke in darkness, so I realized that I was not the only one.
Of course.
But
Mr.
no, thank you.
Motion. Mhm. Yeah, you can proceed, MMC.
Thank you very much. This topic is very dear to some of us because, I think the posture that were taken in the past regarding young people needs a major paradigm shift. Because historically, we took a paternalistic posture that was really about what can we do for young people. So concepts such as caring for the youth, welfare, empowerment, really were dominant concepts in terms of how we approached young people. So we're doing things for young people and not with young people. And I think that we need a major paradigm shift in terms of how we relate to young people. The second point is that I think we should be careful not to reduce democracy to 2 minutes of voting every 5 years. That we look at the participation of young people in terms of the numbers that you get from research institutions and your IEC in terms of young people taking part in elections. Our view is that the democratic process is much more resilient than just 2 minutes of voting.
Yeah. Seems like the MMC has a bit of a challenge there. Mhm.
Taking part in our cooperative. So we think that participation of young people is important.
MMC, because you can proceed. Okay, I think we are having a bit of a challenge there with the MMC.
So we think that.
I think we have lost. Okay, he is still around.
Yeah, but we're struggling a bit. Yeah, no, I think we are struggling there with the network MMC Khoza, as he was explaining the part of the city of Johannesburg in terms of his department and some of the things that they're doing. I don't know, Speaker, have you joined? In closing for our side, this side, I've heard the Umes Tengwane saying the issue of policy formulation, young people are not really involved in that. And also he said lack of economic opportunities is really a challenge. MMC, Speaker, maybe in closing on our side, you can just allude to that and what do you think those comments, if you have heard also, as I've mentioned.
Yes, certainly, Musha, and thank you very much for your participation. I see MMC Khoza, the message is directed to MMC Khoza, since your department is very keen about, okay, MMC Khoza has a problem. Yes, I heard from the participants, particularly Mkolisi as well as Dr. Powe, that what we do as a city does not necessarily resonate with young people. I think that is the reason why we have young people here, because we want their wisdom. We want the young people to tell us how should we engage with young people as the city of Johannesburg. MMC Musha, MMC Khoza is back. Are you going to wait until he?
I can be able to take him if his network issues have been sorted out. Load shedding, I know it's a bit of a challenge. I don't know if he's audible. It will be audible now. I can take him, Speaker.
MMC, you are given an opportunity to conclude.
Yeah, no, it seems like he's still
having.
Okay,
it looks like MMC still has a problem. Yes, so I was going to say, Musha, maybe Mr. Juliet Solomons would be able to respond to this question.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
You are MMC. If you can proceed, MMC, we can pick up where we left off so that I can also say goodbye to our family members this side.
Am I audible now? Am I audible now?
Yes, MMC, you are. You can proceed. Yeah, it seems like the MMC in the city of Johannesburg, he's having a bit of a
2
challenge.
points.
Mhm.
Is that we are also involved in skills development for young people, so that young people are given all the skills to participate in our economy, because we think that is important. Maybe the last 2 points. One is that there is nothing inherently wrong with the young people seemingly not involved in politics and other democratic processes. Our view is that it's because most of them do not see what one might call the democratic dividends of our new South Africa. So the responsibility that we have as political leaders is to create economic opportunities, to create all opportunities so that young people take part in our economy. Because we think that when young people can see that their lives are better in this democratic dispensation, they would necessarily take part in our democratic processes. So I don't think it would be correct for us to ridicule young people as people who are not interested in our democratic processes. I think that people should see the democratic process as fair. People should see it as based on merit. And it should create economic opportunities on merit, as opposed to that what some people are alleging is happening now, that they do not get these opportunities. So for us as the city of Johannesburg, indeed our belief is that we have to create economic opportunities for young people in the form of cooperatives, in the form of SMMEs, but also provide skills for our young people. And we urge our young people to visit all our opportunity centers in all the regions where they would be given financial and non-financial skills, because we think that those are important. By way of conclusion, Chair, our view is that we need a paradigm shift. We need to go away from this idea that young people are supposed to be created in the image of those of us who are not young anymore, that we need to create opportunities for young people. We believe that young people should assume leadership in political parties, in civil society, in NGOs, in the economy, so that they are better able to craft a future that really belongs to them. Thank you very much.
MMC, while I still have you, maybe you can take this opportunity to also share some of the youth cooperatives that have been launched around the city.
Well, we've been very excited about major cooperatives that have been established in the city, because what we've said as the city of Johannesburg is that we procure many services, and there's no reason why we do not use those opportunities to support young people. So we have cooperatives in waste management, we have cooperatives in dealing with crime in the city, we have cooperatives in energy, we have cooperatives in arts and culture, and we believe that these cooperatives are important for young people. Because it's frustrating for us to go around, see young people who do not have much to do in terms of participating in our economy. Maybe the last point is to say that all is not lost, though. I think we've seen through the Fees Must Fall and young people fighting for their rights in high schools, that young people are not necessarily apathetic. I think that they are increasingly taking charge of issues that are peculiar to their needs. And we think that that should find space in our politics, in our democratic structures, so that young people are involved. But cooperatives are not the only tool that we use. We also want to see young people establish SMMEs. We also want to see young people establish big companies. We also want to see young people at the center of what we call the fourth industrial revolution, because that really is where young people are most skilled in terms of taking our country forward. Thank you.
All right, that was the MMC of Economic Development in the city. I think I can also invite Ms. Juliet Solomons that she can tell us about the city, what the city can do differently to encourage young people to become active citizens in the city of Johannesburg and in South Africa as a whole. I don't know if she's able to hear me, Ms. Solomons.
Good evening. I heard the second half of your question. Can you please just repeat the question, because the connection's really been bad?
Mm-hmm. I was just alluding to say that what is it that the city can do differently to encourage young people to become active or engaged in being active, those young people that are going to engage in the democracy? What is it that the city needs to focus on in doing differently from here onwards?
Okay, I think from a UJ perspective, the city has certainly engaged and connected with students in a noteworthy way already. But as you've alluded to, there's always room for improvement in that regard. I think it's important that the city is cognizant of the myriad of challenges that young people face, and this is an emerging myriad of challenges, such as mental health issues. The fact that the fallacy of entrepreneurship for young people, considering things such as the minimum wage, free education. I think it's very important that these type of issues are considered in a meaningful way, because these are the real challenges that our students are faced with. And I think the current programs that are in existence, they serve that whole creation of making sure that students understand, that young people understand that good citizenship, public participation, civil participation is important. But I also think the point that previous speakers alluded to when they spoke, when they mentioned the fact that young people need to be involved. It's important for democracy, particularly that young people are involved in the decision-making process and policy formation. Something that is very important because it creates that civil voice, and I think safeguarding the inclusion and participation of young people into the structures and processes of local government, particularly because local government is the sector and the sphere of
Looks like we lost Ms. Solomons there with regards to the issue of network connectivity. I think that's where we'll leave it for this evening. Speaker, I think that's where we'll conclude this evening's discussion on our site. Thank you so much for participating. I don't know if the speaker has any closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Jozi FM and Jozi FM listeners. We are not closing yet. We will continue until 7:30. But we know that Jozi FM's time has came to an end, but has come to an end. We really appreciate Jozi FM listeners for being participants in this civic education. Until we meet again with you, Jozi FM, and your listeners next week, Wednesday. But we are still continuing with the show up until at least 30:30. And yeah, thank you very much, Mushe.
Thank you, Speaker. All right, that was the Speaker of Council in the City of Johannesburg, Speaker Nongceba Molwele, looking at the importance of youth participation in the democracy of this country. We have heard there from Umabu.
Okay, thank you very much. Jozi FM has disconnected from us. The speakers, starting from Mr. Ngwane in particular, as well as Mr. Desai, and I think MMC, you also raised this issue that, young people are not necessarily apathetic. However, Nkolisi said that you do have these programs. We talk about participation of young people, especially in the economic activities of the city, but the access becomes a bit difficult. So I think it is important to go back to say, what is it that we can do better as the city of Johannesburg to reach out to our young people and make sure that our young people become active citizens in everything and all the programs and being part of governing their city, because this is their city. They are the future leaders of this city, whether politically or otherwise, but they are our leaders. So what is it how can we improve communication with young people? Last time, young people said we find them on social media because they are not able to attend our meetings that are physically called because they are boring. I think there's a speaker who spoke about that the meetings that are being called do not resonate with young people. They are boring to them. We went to the platform where we think that young people are active, but still we did not get the full participation from young people when we were shaping the policies of the city in close policy that you spoke about. We are young people as how best we can improve as the city. Maybe let me go back as also part of the closing remarks to Dr. Bowe, and Mxolisi will follow as such.
Oh, okay, no, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Look, I think maybe I'll just take a different spin on this by saying I think sometimes the narrative starts from, I think it's, look, youth suffer from the same thing the rest of the populace does. I don't think there's anything inherently different that they suffer from, that if you don't have proper political leadership that understands the problem of the day, and here I'm speaking about economic development, because I think throughout this discussion, and I did, this is why I wanted to raise it front and center, that there's a narrative which says government is supposed to be playing in the space of economics. And in truth, I think that last 2 decades, if anything, have shown us that government is not supposed to be the provider of economic opportunity. It's supposed to set the playground. And that's why I said, in these discussions, where are the banks? You know, where are the financial services? Where are the seed funding of institutions? Because I think if the thing is, and I go back to the point, I'm not going to invest my time in something I know is going to be a waste of my time. And I think young people, unfortunately, over the last 2 decades have been, as I said, they've been given the two narratives, which is politics, and then sometimes there's something about economics there. And they know that it doesn't work, so they're not blind to that. So I think rather than saying, look, let's go find them where they are, the issue is, have we actually looked at the programs and the policy direction of the city? And is it actually answering their critical questions? That's why I put it in my presentation that, listen, when we say unemployment, what exactly are we speaking about? Because until we really get it down, and here, this is where I'm a big fan and proponent of saying, is the city actually using big data to target, as in to actually know what's happening in each and every ward? And I know they're going to say, but look, you're asking for something quite big. And this is why I say, are you even using your universities around the area who are actually playing in the space of being able to tell you, listen, these are the predominant feelings? Because I know, for instance, in the Wits School of Governance, we've got a center which is actually looking at how do you get ICT to actually be able to embed and to actually understand what's actually happening at the local level for certain issues. So I think for me, it's an issue of policy formulation and actually answering the question. If the city actually understood the question they were trying to answer, then the natural outflow will be the programs get there. And when the youth or any individual see that, listen, the city is actually on par in the question they're answering, and it's actually speaking about my bread and butter, I guarantee you they'll be there. But if they come to platforms where they know the first word that's going to come up of any politician's mind is, here, I'm here to help you, we know what the situation is, they're going to know, oh no, here's another one, thinking they know when they've had 2 decades to try. Go back to the drawing board and actually say, what is the question we're trying to answer when it comes to unemployment? What are our shortfalls? We know the city does not play in macroeconomic policy. Maybe they should be actually lobbying national government to say, listen, when it comes to special economic zones, maybe Joburg is a bit different, and then we need to actually think differently. As in, do something which shows that the question is being answered. Let's not go on with the 2 decades recycling of what we think is happening. And I'll probably just conclude it there without monopolizing space, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Maybe before we go to the next panelist, can we get the comments from our viewers and our followers? I see on the chat group, there's also some questions that might need to be responded to by the panelists. Ntlaka or Sfiso, is Sfiso here? I know Sipho is not here today. He's not feeling well, and speedy recovery to him. Is Sfiso here? Can we just get a few of the comments from our listeners and viewers?
Okay, Madam Speaker, I will take the questions and the comments. Sfiso seems to be locked out. There are quite a few. So let me start with the first one. It's from Victoria Mamarikane. She says, how do I participate to these types of meetings? Port Lamini says, fantastic show. I'm truly honored to be listening on Jozi FM and watching on Speaker's Facebook page. We need to have more strong youth programs that will encourage us to vote and believe in our leaders again. Sipumelele says, government only speaks to youth during Youth Month. This needs to be addressed adequately. Londiwe says, well done, Madam Speaker. We need to continue with these kinds of discussions, and it should not only be during Youth Month. Tandy Laurent says young people also have problems with data and connectivity. How is the city addressing these issues? Temba Zwane says, speaking of youth not participating in local government, it's also because today's generation is not fully educated about voting and how it will impact them. Luta Donzika says, I've just joined the discussion online. How refreshing that the city is engaging young people in this way. We need to have part 2 of this discussion where there is more time. Mandla Lutuli says the city must market its programs more because sometimes communication does not reach us in time as young people, and as a result, we are unable to participate. I'm also going to take some of the comments on the chat. If you can just bear with me, please. Okay. Okay, I think it's Lerato Katlejo Ndlovu. She says, I agree with the current speaker. As the city, we use the blanket approach. We need to change the strategy. Budumelo says, legacies of apartheid combined with poor budgetary and financial management skills, a massive backlog in basic services and infrastructure, regional inequalities in the provision thereof, and sometimes tense social relationships continue to limit opportunities for social and economic development. Additionally, despite progress made, many people remain vulnerable with poverty, unemployment, and health issues remain a factor that continues to promote dependency on government. The ability of government, municipalities in particular, to deliver such services and meet the expectations of the communities remain I've lost this now. Okay, let me just continue. They believe, okay, my apologies, just give me a few minutes. I've lost this on my. The ability of government and municipalities in particular to deliver such services and meet the expectations of the communities remain a contested notion. Capacity, a lack of suitable skills, bureaucracy, and outsourcing of government functions to consultants has been widely blamed for what has been viewed as shabby service delivery by municipalities. These, they believe, are as a result of poor leadership skills, lack of vision, and an inability to deliver while outsourcing functions to unqualified, less experienced contractors. Yeah, that was quite long. I hope we caught it, but it is on the chat. Tsepo Mabizela says, another stumbling block I have personally encountered is getting business spaces to operate. When we approached JPC, they clearly told us that we must wait for them to advertise request for proposal first when we can forward our proposal. That's counter-revolutionary, as we, the community, know what can take us to the promised land, and waiting for the JPC is just a hassle. Madam Speaker, maybe let me pause it there for now. And yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Ntlaka, and thank you very much to the participants. Our panelists summarily respond to the chat as you do your parting shots. Let me go to Mr. Ngwane. Mr. Ngwane, your parting shots, and maybe incorporate some of the responses to our viewers.
No, thanks, Speaker. Once again, I think the response to the crisis that young people find themselves in the city of Johannesburg, and the only solution is that the economic space needs to be open for young people to participate. And how I mean to say economic space should be open. Remember, we are also in the process of economic recovery plan at the national level, but also at the regional level, we have a economic recovery plan. So that process, it cannot happen in isolation with businesses around the city of Johannesburg, particularly young youth and women in business. So it is important that the bottlenecks should be removed, the red tapes should be removed, and consider Black business that can have business with the city of Johannesburg, but also to agree that skills development needs to be enhanced in the city of Johannesburg for entrepreneurship, because we understand that the economy of any country is also dependent on the SMMEs. But then if the SMMEs find difficult to participate in the economy of the city, therefore it becomes an indictment to the issues of youth development and issues of employment around our communities. So it is important that as young people in Johannesburg, the entrepreneurship needs to be encouraged. Also, the mechanism for young people in business should be open for them to undergo the processes of business opportunities. But also, we must agree in my conclusion that the city of Johannesburg has recently approved the budget, and that budget, it needs then young people to take advantage of it in different departments and in different utilities in the city of Johannesburg, on the basis that each and every budget allocated to the entity, young people in business must try and find space in terms of their participation in business in relation to those departments. But over and above, the city of Johannesburg recently approved a budget for the youth directorate for the city of Johannesburg. Because of the youth directorate in the city of Johannesburg, it is also a body that's supposed to then speak to the issues of development around young people. So it is important and imperative that the youth directorate and its budget being allocated, it needs to be now in action. That youth directorate, it needs to be established so that young people take advantage in terms of that mechanism that seeks to then address the issues of young people. But then in my conclusion, the issue of the economy, we need the private sector also to contribute in the city of Johannesburg. I mean, we have all the white business establishment in the city of Johannesburg. You can go from banks, you can go from manufacturing industries in the city. So we are saying the economy, in order for it to grow, we need the private sector that will be then galvanized by the city of Johannesburg to be the strategic partners.
All right.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to give an opportunity to all the panelists too, because we have to close. We are left with 16 minutes. Sorry to cut you there, Xolisi. I know that you are very passionate about the issue of young people.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from Mr. Desai. Mr. Desai, just 3 minutes, please, on your parting shot.
I think for me, as an activist, and how to bridge the gap between civil society, youth-led formations, and the city, one is firstly, of course, I think I agree with the other panelists that representation within government structures is important. But secondly, is for government officials to also join young people in our struggles, in coming out to the picket lines, attending our events and activities as a form of support, but thereafter also taking the word from the streets into the state, of course, in partnership with our own youth representatives that may be in those structures.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Desai. Let's go quickly to Ms. Solomons. Your parting shot there, Ms. Solomons. Is Juliet still around? Okay, she's not around. MMC, your concluding remarks. We also do apologize to our viewers. There's someone who says you keep on deleting our messages. We have not deleted any messages. So if your messages have been deleted by mistake, we do apologize. So let me hand over to MMC to wrap up and also include the questions that we asked MMC, if you can, on the chats as well as on our platforms.
No, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. You know, the democratic journey is never final. So we all struggle to perfect the democracy that we want to see. So every effort that we've made to date may not be sufficient in terms of including young people into our economy. But I would say that there are a number of programs that we've put in place JAWS at work, free Wi-Fi would be deployed in almost all the regions of Johannesburg. We're spending a lot of money on free Wi-Fi. One input from have access to data, and we're saying that we Wi-Fi. In fact, we've signed MOUs with the Universities of Wits and Johannesburg. We want to position ourselves as a leader in smart cities, and we're quite excited about that because professors are seized with some of these issues on a daily basis and want to work with those universities to ensure that high value research takes place and that our services and the offerings that we provide actually speak to the fourth industrial revolution. Of course, when it comes to our projects, we've said that 30% of our projects in terms of value should go to SMMEs and communities where these projects are taking place. So if, for instance, there's a project from City Power, we think that it should employ people in those particular wards so that at least, when we say there's economic empowerment, it speaks to our people. Madam Speaker, we're very excited about our opportunity centers, and we urge young people to visit them because they provide both financial and non-financial support, and they're everywhere in the city of Johannesburg. In fact, next month, there's a mobile opportunity center that we're launching. There's a bus that we've bought, and this bus will be stopping, primarily targeting young people, so that young people would pose questions on entrepreneurship. We also want to work with young people who have ideas so that we can help them commercialize those ideas because we think it's important. Maybe the last 2 points to make is that, we do not think that as the state, we are the only player in terms of creating opportunities for young people. We believe that, we may not agree with the idea that the state has no role in creating opportunities and jobs. We believe that the state does exactly that, but the bulk of the jobs and opportunities, in our view, should come from the private sector. So we think that's important. Our EPWP is garnering pace, and we are attracting young people to ensure that young people have all these job opportunities. They have all the experience they need so that they can continue to take part in our economy. So all these measures, Madam Speaker, are important in terms of including our young people. Maybe the last point to make is that we are concerned as the city of Johannesburg that economic growth for the majority of our people remains a rumor. A lot of people feel that things are happening in Yosemite and Rosebank, maybe the real estate adventurism in that part of the world. But we want to make sure that economic opportunities are brought closer to our people. So if you are in Lenasia, you are in Rivoli, you are in Soweto, Alex, Ivory Park, we think that over and above providing housing and infrastructure, bulk infrastructure in those areas, that we need to bring economic opportunities in manufacturing, in real estate, in retail, to those people so that those centers begin to realize economic life. So these are some of the measures that we're putting in place, Madam Speaker. The last point is that, of course, through the office of the Speaker, we wanted to see stronger voices from young people when we're finalizing our budget, when we're finalizing our IDP, because we think that these processes are meaningless if they do not speak to all the sectors of our society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MMC. Thank you very much to all our panelists. Thank you very much to all our listeners, viewers, followers. Time is really an enemy. We really apologize. We know that
Hello, is anyone still there? Are we done?
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I think we are having trouble hearing you. If you could maybe just give it another shot as you do your vote of thanks or your closing remarks.
Nhlaka, we have lost Madam Speaker.
Oh, have we?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is it possible maybe to do those, the first question from the
No, unfortunately,
young
we've run
man?
out of time, Mpumi. We've run out of time, so unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take any more questions. I think what the speaker was trying to do is to do her closing remarks and basically to thank everybody for joining the platform. Unfortunately, we have lost her, so please give me the opportunity to thank everybody on her behalf. Thank you very much, MMC, for your input. We really appreciate it, and thank you to all the panel members. Dr. TK, thank you very much.
Sorry, can we please use the online register to fill in our details so it can allow us to keep a database of our stakeholders and our young people so we can engage with them on other further engagements. Thank you so much.